Of course.
So I want to just say today's Maimer is called Bi'ur. Bi'ur means it's an explanation of what we learned last week, but a whole different thing. So in order to understand this, I want to just discuss two things. One is called in Kabbalah and Torah called Mimutza. Mimutza is like a in-between, or we call it an intermediator. So I'll give you an example. Hashem created domem, inanimate, tzomeach, vegetation, chai, and medaber. But between each one, there's a memutza.
What does that mean?
A one that's not a domem, but it's not a tzomeach,
Cool.
but it has some piece that's like a domem and some that's like a tzomeach, because through this they can become the next level. In other words, after tzomeach, in order to make a domem, I need to create something in between that has some character of tzomeach, and it could make it into a domem. They say there is in the ocean there's like stones, or what is it called?
Coral.
Yeah, okay. Then between tzomeach and chai, according to the Medrash, there's a certain kind of tzomeach that if you get near it, it could eat you. Even it stays in one place, but it could actually eat. And then between chai and medaber, you have a monkey, which according to Torah, it's like Adam in this shape, the eyes, the 10 fingers, but it's a behemoth, it's in between. So like a lot of times when we want to say an example of like klipa, we say kikof b'fnei Adam, like a monkey in front of a human. So the klipa also tries to be very similar to holiness. So they look like a human. They have eyes like a human. They have 10 fingers, like we said last week. They have 10 sfirot. They have similar things. But they're still an animal. It's all about themselves. It's not about the mission. Okay, so that's how Hashem made it. The same thing when we speak in the spiritual worlds. In order to come from atzmut means the essence of Hashem, we need a few things here, and this is very important. Hashem is above everything. He's above the world, above light, above darkness. He's above the whole thing. So now in order for Hashem to make a world, He made a process. And this process is called Or and Sof. What do you mean Or? To make Or, it has to come from a Ma'or. Light has to come from a source that creates the light. What's the source that creates the light? Hashem.
Oh.
But in order to become a light, it has to be diminishing it's not the source, it's already a light that's removed from the source, and now it comes out to the world. So, to take from Hashem's essence and to start to create a whole world, we need to first make Or, we need light. In order to create light, Hashem had to conceal His Ma'or. Ma'or is the source of light, so we could get light. Mm-hmm. The problem with this light is it's Ein Sof. It's called Or Ein Sof. So if it's light that has no limit and no end, how are you going to make a world? A world has levels, it has a place, Chachma, Binah. So after the Or, okay, so you have the essence of Hashem, then you have a light that Hashem condenses, and this is light as infinite. So before He creates the first world, which is called Atzilut, there's something before it called Keter. What's Keter mean? Keter means the crown. That this crown has two parts to it. It's the end of the infinite light of God, and it's the beginning of the world of Atzilut. It's like the memutza. It's like, I have a part of me that's part of the infinite Ein Sof, that has no limit. And then the lower part of me is already the beginning of the first world of Atzilut. So this keter is called Mimutza. Mimutza means it's in between. So in Kabbalah language, if you want to use Kabbalah language, it's called Atik and Arich. Just Atik means removed. That's the translation of Atik, like Atak, like Atik, Yomim is removed. And then there's Arich, which is long and it's already related to the world. So in Keter, you have a part of Keter, the higher part of Keter, that's the end of the infinite Ein Sof. In other words, it's the lowest part of Ein Sof, and it has in it the part that is the beginning of Atzilut. Is that idea clear? So that's one thing. Let's go to number 2. Okay, so now we have Atzilut. What is Atzilus made out of? 10 Sfirot. Chachma, Bina, Das. Okay. Each Sfira has 2 parts. It has the vessel, the Kli, and the light. So we already established that to get from the essence of Hashem, we first have to make a light. This light is infinite, so we make Keter. Keter is like the in-between of infinite and the beginning of the world. Now we get Atzilut. Now we're up to Atzilut. Now I want to create the 10 Sfirot. So Hashem creates 2 things. There's a light, and then there's the vessel. So let's take Chachma. Chachma is the first of the 10 Sfirot. What is Chachma made out of? A vessel, a Kli, and there's a light. There's an or. Now listen to this. This or is limited now because it fits in a vessel. The or and sof that's before Keter doesn't fit in a vessel. It's infinite. This is already a light that's going into a vessel. Now, even this light that goes into the vessel, so now it's Chachma. What is the Chachma? Is it the light or is it the vessel?
Chachma is the vessel, I think.
So he says here, the vessel. Why? The light is or Pashut. Pashut means even this light that's already condensed, it's still transparent light. It doesn't have a form to it. It has no name to it. Only when it goes into the vessel could you say Chachma. When it's out of the vessel, you can't say Chachma. A good example it gives in Chassidut, Tzemach Tzedek gives, is if you take water or seltzer and you put it in a red cup. So from the outside, the water is going to look red. The water didn't change color. What really changed color is because the cup is red, the Kli is red. That's why it looks like the water is red. So the or of Chachma, it looks like Chachma because it goes through the vessel of Chachma. If it wouldn't go through the vessel of Chachma, it wouldn't be called Chachma, it would be or.
So the light is like an energy, actually? Kind of energy?
The or
Yeah.
is a plain energy.
Plain energy.
There's no yet limit to it.
So you need the vessel to...
The vessel makes it already Chachma. The same thing, let's go to Chesed.
Yeah, okay.
Or is plain energy. And then when it goes through the vessel of Chesed, now you could say, oh, his kindness. But, okay, so basically that's the idea. Now, here gets to the next piece, which is very important. So you're telling me Hashem is above everything. Right? Hashem is Atzmut, there's no light, and Hashem condenses himself and makes light. Then he makes Keter, then he makes Atzilut, then he makes the vessel and the light. So let me ask you a question. Finally Hashem made Chesed, and now Hashem does Chesed for you. He gives you a child. He gives you income, whatever he gives. Who gave it to you? Is it the Kli that gives you the Chesed, or it's Hashem through the Kli? You know what I'm saying? In other words, even though there's so many concealments and so many condensing till we get to this point, I want you to know that even though that's the truth, and Hashem is above everything, but the end of the story is that even though Hashem made all this, Hashem is in everything. So even though he's condensed, it's Hashem doing the chesed. It's not the kli doing the chesed. So that's like almost like a tarta de sasa. Tarta de sasa means, on one hand, Hashem is above everything. You can't limit him to anything. On the other hand, he's everything. So if he's everything, so then the chesed that you're getting from Hashem. It's not like, there's a famous thing, there's a whole argument in Torah about when you pray, are you allowed to use names of malachim? Like on Yom Kippur we say, Michael is from the right, Gavriel is from the left, Raphael is from there. Please, what's the problem? The problem is like this. Okay, Hashem created malachim, and they are messengers of Hashem. That's why Hashem created them. But do we attribute anything to them, or we attribute it to Hashem?
Hashem.
So even though Raphael brought healing, but we don't look at it as Raphael has the power. It's Hashem that condensed himself into Raphael to make healing.
Messenger. Holy messenger.
Right. So how could you say angel names and say, Raphael, please pray for me? You say Hashem, and Hashem will pick. So there's a whole argument in Torah, in halacha. Should you use angels? Should you not? I'm not going to get into, we do, sometimes not.
It's like you go to a tzaddik. To the tzaddik, you want the blessing.
Exactly. So you don't go to the tzaddik as if the tzaddik has the power. It's Hashem gave the power through him.
Exactly.
That's how we look at it, right?
Yeah.
So what's the end?
The tzaddik is a kli.
Yeah, a vessel. Now, in order for a tzaddik to get this power, he basically has to be totally nullified to Hashem. He's just a funnel. That it goes through him. He's just a vehicle for Hashem. So it's not like he, that's one of the interesting things, by the way, the difference in Christianity and Judaism, is by Judaism, we look at Moshe Rabbeinu. If you go to Moshe Rabbeinu and you say, Moshe, did you take the Jews out of Egypt?
No, he said God.
He says, no, God. Did you give us the Torah? God. Did you split the sea with your stick? God. Because it's called Mimutza HaMechaber. It's an intermediate. God created Moshe to be like an in-between. Part of Moshe is connected to Hashem, part of Moshe is connected to Bnei Israel. But it's not an in-between that separates. It's an in-between, an intermediate that connects us closer to Hashem because Moshe is telling us it's Hashem. In the other religion, Christianity, it's a little different. They believe that this guy, Yoshka, even though they believe Hashem, but they feel like he has now power. And everything he does, they attribute it to him.
Correct.
Yeah, they believe Hashem gave it to him, but it's his choice. He could give, he could say no, yes, he could. It's all him. So they make him the source of it. In Torah, no, it's the memutza hamechaber. So in Christianity, this memutza separates.
Correct.
By us, it's the memutza that connects, because it's not them doing it; it's Hashem. The same thing with the vessels. Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed. It's not that the vessel is doing Chesed. It's Hashem doing Chesed, but Hashem condensed and condensed and condensed till he cut the Chesed through the Kli of Chesed that's coming out. But still, it's Hashem. That's what he's trying to say. You understand?
Yep.
So, okay, we have Mamutza, we have the connection. Now, what does it have to do with anything we learned? That we'll get to. But the idea is the concept. So let's read it inside. Now that we understand the three concepts, it starts on page, hold on. I forgot the page, 37, just for the record so they know. Oid biur. You see it? Shchoira ani v'nava. So, look how he starts. Hine bein hamatzil lanet salim sorach liyes b'chinas memutza k'mo shekosav eitz chaim mishum the lav bei mekolin matzil in Kabbalah. Matzil means Hashem, the one that emanates everything. It's not so. Matzil is the source of everything. Netzalim is what came out of it. We're not even up to Bria. We're still above the worlds. So we call it Matzil and Netzal, which is emanation and the one that causes the emanation. So the cause and the effect. So there has to be a mamutza. We have to have a in-between between the Matzil, which is the source of everything, and Netzal, which is what came out of it. Mm-hmm. So Vafilu, he says, the next column, Be'esa Sfira is the 10 Sfiros. Remember we said Atzilut has 10 Sfirot. Mashenikra Sfiras Chachma. What is called Chachma? Hainu Hakli Hamagbil Sa'or De'esa Sfiras Mishrin Chachma and Chesed. What, when we say Chachma and Chesed, we mean who? The kli, right? Because the or, aval etzema or, the light itself, lo shayich likroise b'shem chachma. The light itself, you cannot call chachma. Why is it? Because it's too, it's above chachma. It's just plain energy. Rak or hamahavas is a chachma. Okay, so in Atzilut, the kli is called chachma. The light of the kli is not called chachma. But this light, that is the source that comes into the kli. I want you to know, or who, this light that comes into the kli chachma is only ziv. V'ha'ara me'atzmut hamatzil. The or that's in chachma is only a little glimmer and shine from Hashem himself. Ve'ein poyel b'shim shini b'mahusi v'atzmusei. And the fact that there is chachma, and this chesed, and this gura doesn't change anything in Hashem. Because Hashem is above this whole thing. Like it says, Ani Havaya Lo Shanisi, I Hashem did not change. Kemoi Kodesh Nivra Elamis, as if there was no world. In other words, for Hashem, the world didn't make any change. And this, he says, answers the Uvezemeturetz Kushas HaPhilosophim, the question of the philosophers. Now I just want to say one thing about philosophers. He doesn't mean here philosophers like Greek philosophy, because they could deny the whole thing of God. He means in Torah itself, there's great chachamim called chokrim, like Chakira, like Kuzari. There's different books that go into it. So they had always a question. This bothered them. Eich kol hatoyrim ein poilim shum shinu. They didn't understand. And he explains it here. Like in the Torah, look what it says in the Torah in Shemot. V'sachas raglov, under God's feet, is like a clear stone, whatever. Kesuvim be'etzma lekim. It's written, the luchot is written with God's finger. Eini Hashem, the eyes of Hashem. It says in the Torah. Ozni Hashem, the ears of Hashem. So they were a little dilemma, because I'll tell you what their dilemma was. It says it in the Torah. See, me and you, if we say the eyes of Hashem, I could say, okay, you don't understand. But if the Torah is describing and saying the ears of Hashem, the eyes of Hashem, the finger of Hashem, the Torah is a Torah of truth. The Torah doesn't make these things that are guzmaot. So they couldn't understand. If you say Hashem has eyes, even though his eyes are bigger than our eyes, we're not disagreeing, and he has ears that's much loftier than ours, a different level, but that means it affects Hashem. Hashem changed. Before the world was created, there was no such a thing as eyes, ears, even by Hashem. Now there is. That's what the philosophers couldn't understand. If you look at the Shalah is lived a few hundred years, and he writes like a lot on on the Chumash, a lot of pirushim, but on the level of Kabbalah. And he answered this question, and I gave you the example, one example with the water, that the change of the color is not the light, it's the vessel that makes the change. So, but he says, I just want you to know one thing. Even when you say Hashem has eyes, Hashem has ears, even when you use that, it only refers to Hashem, how he puts himself in the 10 sfirot.
Not above.
In other words, like this. If you look at Hashem, the way he puts himself in the world of Atzilut, I could start relating to kindness of Hashem. Hashem is listening. Hashem sees. That's how Hashem put himself in Atzilut. Because that's already the beginning of emanation and the beginning of a creation. But Hashem, that's the light that's above Atzilus, you can't even say that. Even when the Torah uses the word Oznei Hashem, or it's only how Hashem comes into Atzilut. It says Hashem is merciful, or Nokem, Hashem takes revenge. Well, what kind of revenge? But that's already how Hashem puts himself in the Midah of Gvura. Even these Midot, by the way, I want you to know, in Klal in Musak Shebenevroim. I mean, even Atzilut that you say Chesed and Gvura, don't think that Chesed of Atzilus is similar to your Chesed in this world. Even though it's already a limited, because it's already Hashem, how you could already say Chesed to Hashem, but the Chesed of Atzilus is far above yours. As the Torah says, Avram said these words, Anoichi Ofor ve'efer. I am dirt and ashes. So the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, you know why he uses that word? Because Avraham in this world was Chesed. And Midas HaChesed of Atzilut told Hashem, since Avram is here, I lost my job. He's doing my job for me. I'm on vacation. Hachnosas orchim, he bikocholim. You know what Avram did? He taught everyone about God. So this is what Avram says. Avram says to everyone, Anoichi, even though I am Chesed, but compare my Chesed to the Chesed of Atzilus is Ofor ve'efer. I'm the Chesed of the ultimate Chesed there is in this world, but compared to the Chesed of Atzilus, I'm just dust and ashes. It's like totally.
How is somebody supposed to actually understand when you're, no matter how much you study or whatever, to try to differentiate between the word Chesed, Abraham's Chesed, God's Chesed, and the in-between layers? It's almost impossible for anybody. They can philosophize all they want, but the reality is there's such a total difference.
100%.
And therefore, we have to.
But you'll soon see it.
The explanation
I'll tell you
is that God is every level, and that to interpret it and to understand it in our mindset, we have to layer it so that we can possibly understand what it represents.
Okay.
But it's all God.
No, but I'll tell you the difference. I'll tell you one difference.
Excuse me.
No,
My voice.
No, I'll tell you one difference. I agree with you that God himself is above everything. The essence of God is above, has nothing to do with chesed, nothing. He's above the whole thing. Hashem chose to, so to say, condense and make this light and then make the keter and make the world so he could create chesed.
But it's creating it for us to understand it.
No, one second. What is this chesed? No, the chesed is that this is how Hashem channels kindness to this world. But I want you to know that the way Hashem's kindness is in Atzilut, which is already limited, because Atzilut compared to Hashem is...
It's nothing to read.
Right.
I'll make it easier for you. If you take Atzilut to compare it to the essence of Hashem, it's further difference than Atzilus to this world. Now, Atzilus to this world is a vast difference. But Atzilus to Hashem is even more. Because he's talking about a God that's infinite, has no limit to nothing, not light, not dark, nothing. And now you're putting him into Chesed. You're putting him into Gevura. You're putting him into... It's almost
Absolutely.
It's like, you know what it says in Kabbalah?
Going through a strain.
B'makom gdulasai, sham ata moitza anevusnosai. Which means like this. It's a good line, but we say it a lot in Kabbalah. It means like this. Where you find God's greatness, that's where you find his humbleness. Why? You say, God is such a kind chesed God. But for God to put himself in chesed, he had to condense and humble himself so little to put himself into chesed.
Those were strange.
It's like
Separate.
our great God that's so chesed, but for Hashem it's so low. It's so demeaning, but he put himself into chesed. So it's almost like it's almost like someone going to a billionaire and says, "You're so great, you gave $1 to tzedakah." You know, Hashem is so kind; He's chesed. That's so limited to Hashem, but that's how we do it. Gadol Hashem, Chanun v'Rachum. That's how we refer. But he says, "Ach im kol zeh him shayach rak m'chinas hakelim." That's the service. Where could you say chesed and gevura only? The vessels of Atzilus. But Hashem is not the light of Atzilus has nothing to do with Chesed, right? Mm-hmm. So what are we saying till now? That the Chesed or Chachma of all of that is the vessel of Atzilus, and they are far removed from the Or of Atzilus and far removed from Hashem. Afal Pikein, even though you're telling me that Chachma and Chesed and all the attributes is so removed from Hashem, Misyachas kol zeh lo yizbarach mamish. Yet, we always are going to relate any Chesed that happens to the world. Who are we going to relate it to? Atzmu yizbarach mamish harachamon. We say Hashem Himself is the Rachamon. Hashem Himself is the Chazdan. Hashem Himself is the Nokem. How does Hashem do it Himself? The light becomes one with the vessels. Gamor means the vessels and the light is one. Mamish. Yeah. So when we say Chesed, the Chazdan, we refer to Hashem as the Chesed. Even though it's so far removed from Hashem, but Hashem puts Himself into Chesed, and He becomes one with it. So it's as if Hashem is doing the Chesed, not the Kli of Chesed. It's Hashem Himself doing the Chesed.
So the Kli, if you have the Kli without the light, you have nothing.
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 You have, I would call you, I wouldn't say nothing, I would say the remnants. You know what remnants is like? You ever heard of Shvirat HaKelim?
Okay.
What happens Shvirat HaKelim? Shvirat HaKelim means like this. The light was so powerful that the vessel couldn't hold it. Mm-hmm. So the vessel actually broke. But when the vessel broke, it like had some remnants left from the light. And that's what gives the light to the klipa. So it's like called Shvirat HaKelim. What is Shvirat HaKelim? It's not like the vessels is like a golam. It's also godliness, but it's already limited. But when the vessel breaks, there's still a little remnants left of the... So the way I would look at it, if you have light without a vessel, it's like a body without a soul. So a body is a big thing. It has a heart, it has 248 limbs, it has a lot of things, but it's dead. But it's still a something. Yeah. So you're right, the vessel itself is not going to do anything, but you need the light. Okay. So now we said that what? Hashem clothes Himself in the chesed, and it's Hashem doing it. But, even though Hashem is doing the chesed, ein ze poyel shum shinui v'hispailas b'atzmus yizbarech. Hashem doing chesed has no effect on Hashem, because Hashem Himself is above it. Kegam ha'or, even the light, hamislabish reses hurak ke'inyin zivar b'olvad, aval atzmus yizbarech, hu kadesh umudol, ve'enyin kedin haneshama shi'atzma. This is an interesting thing. By us humans, it's different. I'll tell you why. Your body and your soul, so your soul is in your body. Your soul becomes so connected to the body that the actual body does affect the soul. For example, if you're cold, it's not just your body is cold. It affects the way your soul feels. If you have a fever, it's not just your body having fever. It affects the soul. So when a body and a soul is connected, the body does have an effect on the soul. But when God is connected to the light in the Kli, the Kli has no effect on the light.
Rabbi, isn't the soul...
You see what I'm saying? So in other words, it's not, it's Eina, he says, Eina kehaneshama b'kedinyam haneshama shi'atzma v'slavesh guf. The neshama itself goes into the body, and therefore the neshama gets affected by the body, and the body has a big effect. But by God, God is above the whole thing. So there's a little shine of God that went through Keser and went through everything, and that goes into the vessel. But that's just a minute light that emanates from God. But God himself has nothing to do. He says. You remember I said to you the example, Ashini v'gavan klal. Even the light that already is in Atzilut and goes into the vessel, the light doesn't get changed. Is the color red is in the vessel, not in the light. So even the diminished light that's already going into the Kli of Chachma or Chesed, that light doesn't change because it only changing is the vessel that makes the light look like Chachma. So that's even the light that doesn't change. Of course, God doesn't change. If the light doesn't change, you have it, turn the page. Where is it? Now, you asked before about the vessels, are they anything? Or they're just like a dead meat. So he says, I said to you, it's like a remnant. So he says, Vihine akelim da'atzilus, gamelikus, it's also godly. It's just not like the light. The light is like godly without any color to it. It's just plain energy. The vessel already has a limit. It's a chachma. It's whatever it is. Even the light that creates the spheres is only like the ziv of the sun that comes out. It doesn't have any effect on the mor. The mor is the source of the light. Also, in this world, also the sun is called the mor, the source of light. And then from the sun comes out a ray. Does the ray have any effect on the sun? No, it comes all the way to this world, and you could block it. You could put a sunglasses so it looks different colors. You could put a shade, and the ray goes through the shade, but it doesn't affect the sun. No. So the same thing is with Atzilut. The light of Atzilus comes into the vessel of Atzilut, but it has no effect on the Ma'or. Okay, so we're good till now? In order that the infinite light should be able to come into the Sfiras, that's what I said to you before, there has to be an intermediate between the infinite light and Atzilut, then the Or Seif could create Svirot. And what is the Memutza? What is the intermediate? Keter. Keter is called a crown. It's above Atzilut. And this is what he says. Memutza zehu Keter sheyesh boy. What is it? Why is it a Memutza? Sheyesh boy mebchinas achareina shebamatzul. It has the lowest level of God and the first beginning of Netzalim of the creation. So it has both. L'chayin, he says, sometimes Keter is called Or Seif. Why is it Or Seif? Because it's B'chinas Acharein Shebamatzil. It's the lowest of the infinite God. That there has no Sfirot and there's no limit, the part of Keser. And then there's another part of Keser which is called Shoyrish Netzalim, which is the source of the emanations, and that's part of the 10 Sfiras, and that's why it's called Memutza. It's in between. So Keter is the Memutza between the Ein Seif and the beginning of Netzalim, and that's why sometimes Keter is called Or and Seif, and sometimes it's called part of the 10 Sfirot. Like in some Kabbalah, we know as a 10 Sfirot like this: Ches, Chachma, Bina Das, the three intellectual, Chesed, Gevura, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. That's how we know it. In some Kabbalah, they go like this: Keter, Chachma, Bina. Ches, they skip Das. Chesed, Gevura, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. So they count Keter as one of the 10. I thought Keter is the crown. What? Keter is in between. So it has a part of it that it's one of the 10, and it has a part of it that's the end of Ein Sof. So sometimes we count Keter as one of the 10, sometimes we don't. Because if we refer to Keter as the beginning of Netzalim, the beginning, then it's part of the 10. If we refer to Keter as the end of Ein Sof, then it's not part of the 10. And that's the difference between Atik and Arich. Atik is the higher level, and Arich is the lower level.
Is there a difference in any of the parts that we're discussing now, like Keter and whatever have you, from individual to individual, or is this just the difference between the layers of the 10 Sfirot?
When you say individual, you mean different worlds?
No, different people.
We're not saying about people now. We're just saying about the world.
Layers.
The world.
The world is separated based on and therefore, so then when we break down each level, are we breaking it to its? Each one has a dimension unto itself.
Of Chachma,
within the dimension we starting out, like Keter has multiple layers.
Oh yeah, we have the Keter has that it's part of the end of Ein Sof. And then it also has a part that's the beginning of creation.
Every layer, the 10 Sfirot has breakdown again.
Two layers, yeah.
2 layers.
Yeah. He's saying, like, let's say for Chachma. Chachma has the higher level of Chachma that's connected to Keter, and it has the lower level of Chachma that goes to Bina. And then Bina has the higher part that connects to Chachma.
So there's a continual breakdown.
That's already subdividing, subdividing. Yeah, that's true, that we do the 7 weeks of the Omer. We take the 7 into 7, so we do 49. Okay, that's already going into more detailed of it, but in general. Now, the only thing he's going to answer an interesting question. But we're pretty advanced here. We're pretty advanced. He's already up to Keter.
Right.
I'm still in the middle of Asiyah here. Now, I want to just say one thing. He uses the word here in the part that we just said. L'chein lefa'amim nikra kesa or ein sof. You see that?
Yeah.
Look what he says. Dahainu metzad b'chinat ha'acharona shebil matzel. The Keter has in it the lowest end of God. So in the Sagrayim here, in the parentheses, he has a little problem to say by God the end. How could you say the lowest end of God? God has no end. So he's just going to explain, because we're saying Keter has 2 parts. It's the end of God, infinite God, and it's the beginning of creation. But how could you say Acharona to God? How could you say, we say in Adon Olam, Ein lo, how could you say? So look what he says. How could you say in Ein Sof that there's an end? First of all, what's the translation of the word Ein Sof? No end. So how could you say end? What does Ein Sof mean? Ein Sof. You can't have an end or a beginning. Where could I say it? I could say in the Es Sfiros. Well, you know why? Because you have the first of the 10 Sfiros is what? Chachma. What is the Chachma called? Reishis Chachma. And then Malchus is the 10th, so it's the end. But be'ein soif she'ein leketzer reish v'hu pasuk b'tachas hapshitos mahu im b'chinas hacharena. How could you say there's an end? You understand the question? In Atzilus, I could say there's Chachma, the beginning, and Malchus, the end, because there's a world already. But in Ein Sof, and you want to tell me this is the end of Ein Sof, so then it's not Ein Sof. It's interesting because in Kabbalah and Hasidus in general, we don't ask it's not like Talmud. Like in Talmud, you have a statement and then you ask 10 questions on it, and then you try to answer. Then usually in Kabbalah, it's just statements. Here he's making a question. How could you say that there should be an end to Ein Sof, and that's Keter? How could you say on Ein Sof an end if Ein Sof doesn't have an end? So he says, V'hoya nir loima. V'hoya nir loima means it appears to me to say. Now, I just want you to know when the Alter Rebbe writes this, it's not like he had a doubt. It appears to me that maybe we could say it's just humbleness. That all the Gaonim that wrote like Rashi, all the tzaddikim when they always wrote V'yesh lomar. You could say, but there's no v'yesh. You say lomar. We know what they mean. They could means you got. This is exactly. It's just the way they speak in a humble form. So he says v'hoya nira loima. It makes sense. No, this is the answer. It says Acha loy nivra olam hoyuhu shmei bavad. It says in Pikei de Rebbe Lezer that before there was a world, what existed before the world?
Only him.
Only Hashem. But in there he says, Hoyahu Shmoy Bilvad. There was Hashem and his name. What does that mean, he says? V'yadua akusha ich shaykh koydem briyas olam. How could you say before the world was created, B'chinas Shem, that Hashem, God had a name? Umi kroy, and who used the name if there was no one here to use his name? Usually a name you need so you can relate to someone else. But if you're the only thing that's here, there's no world, there's no sphirot, there's no chachma, there's no angels, there's nothing. It's just God himself. So what do you mean there's God and his name? There's nothing. It's only God. So what do we need it? Achayin, he says, Ki ispashas achayas hanim shechomeni yisborach lachem he'osesfiris ein ispashas v'amshach hazu rak p'nei shem ha'oda v'nikar oirin seif aval mohusei v'atzmusei ki ihuram v'nisa. God himself is a kaniyah v'avaya loy shanisi. So he wants to say is like this. This that we say, the idea of a name for Hashem, what it means is very simple. That everything that Hashem made, the keter, the or, the light, everything is only. It's almost like when I call you by a name, Roy or Ronen, whatever I call you, that name is far removed from you, because you is you without the name. Then I gave you a name. Why? So I could relate to you. He's just bringing out when it says Hashem has a name. It doesn't mean there's a name. It means to say that which part of Hashem made the creation and started the emanation and started the whole thing is only the part of Hashem that's considered like distant. What is a distant part of Hashem? Shem, a name. Because a name is not him. A name is not you. A name is just something I use to refer to you. But I don't need a name if I'm alone. Look what he says. He says an interesting thing. What does it mean, a name by Hashem before the world is created? It means the power that Hashem has, that he has the potential to have the potential to make a world. In other words, like this, before there was a world, before there was anything, did Hashem have in him the potential that he could make a world?
Yeah.
Well, because the fact is he made it. So this Yecholet means this ability that Hashem has the potential that he could make a world, that potential is called Shem. Because Hashem himself is far removed from everything.
Yeah.
But in Hashem, even before he created anything, there was already the potential of the potential that could come out of the world, because the fact is it did come out. So the potential that something could come out, that is already called Shem, even though it didn't even yet happen. It's just that it could happen. It's called, when you take a match, a regular match, and you touch the end, doesn't feel hot, right? It doesn't feel anything.
Nothing.
But then when you strike it, it comes out of fire. So in this, whatever you want to call it, the gofrit, whatever that little picture, they strike, that little thing, is there fire in there or no?
Sulfur.
No.
So why when I strike it, fire comes out? That means there is a potential in it, but so hidden that when you touch it, there's no energy, there's no feeling, there's no heat, there's nothing. Mm-hmm. I'll give you even a better example. There's stones that's called tsur, that you bang two stones together and a spark comes out. Flint, it's called? So you bang it. So what does that mean? In the stone, there's actually a fire you could feel? No.
Nothing.
It's so potential and so removed. Hiyuli. Koyach ha-hiyuli. You ever heard that word in Hebrew? No. Hiyuli, it means it's that potential in the stone that fire can come out, but it's so far removed that there's no way you see it or feel it or know it. It's just when you bang, all of a sudden a spark comes out. It says when Adam Arishan, right, on Matzah Shabbos, he needed light. Hashem put in his mind to take two stones and to strike it. What happens? Fire, and he created the first Eish. That's why every Matzah Shabbos we say Borei Moira Eish, because it was created. What does it mean? He created the fire? No. It was so hidden and in such a way that it was as if it didn't exist. And now by banging it, he brought it out in an existence. It's almost like if you take $100 bill, right? So, let's see if I have one. Sometimes you have, Oh, I have $100 bill. If you take $100 bill, how many singles are here? 100 singles. How many pennies are here?
1,000.
1,000 pennies. Is it here?
No.
But could it come out from this?
Yep.
Yeah. So in Hashem's essence, Etzem of Hashem is like, it's just Hashem, but it could come out from him, the world. The or could come out, it didn't, because it was still only Hashem. But the fact that it could come out, that's the name of Hashem. Nothing came out, it's all Hashem. But he has in it the ability that it could. It's called Koyach Ha-Hiyuli. It's the potential that's in it. So, Shmoy HaKolo Batzmusai, this name that's is part of the essence on the top left. That means the last level of Hashem. And from this level, now it makes sense to call the Achrein. So now it makes sense why you could call it the end. Why? This is not the main thing of Hashem. You think the main thing of Hashem that he creates the world and that he gives the world? No. You're the God that was here before. If God didn't create any worlds, for Hashem, yes, creating, not creating, it doesn't make any difference. So what is making what part of Hashem gives the life to create the light and to create the worlds? It's only a little shine. This is the light But God Himself, who l'mayla adin kates, v'mchinas ha'arazu, u'kala mamash chashiva, v'lachein, He says, ha'arazu, v'mchinas ha'yoysa achreina, this is the lowest level of God which could create the world. In other words, like this. When we say acharona, what we're trying to say is not that it's the end. We're trying to say that what level of Hashem did Hashem use to make this world? His essence? No. For Hashem, there's no difference before and after. If He wouldn't make the world, it'll still be the same Hashem. He makes the world, it's still the same Hashem. Nothing changed. So which part of Hashem made this world? So Hashem says, there's one part of me that's called Ziv. It's a minute. It's so minute that it's almost like it doesn't exist. That's the source of the whole creation. So it's achrona, means it's the lowest level of Hashem, because Hashem Himself has nothing, is above it. But Hashem has this potential ziv that could come out of Him, that's such a minute light, and that is what made the world. So it's called acharona, not because it ends. It's the lowest level that He used to be able to make the whole world.
Where is that indicated?
In the Torah.
Says it right there clearly.
Yeah.
Why is it that God would have to tell mankind that He used the lowest of the low of His
infinite light,
of His infinite light to make the world? Why diminish mankind to that low level?
No, on the contrary. I'm making God so tall.
I'm aware.
No, forget about us. Who cares about
God
us?
doesn't need it.
Okay, but He wants it.
Okay.
God doesn't need anything.
I got it. But I'm just saying.
But it's like, does God?
Mankind has got a mind. If
God doesn't need us. God doesn't need us.
And we think, and we have the difficulty of the acceptance or not acceptance of doing and all the mitzvahs and the problem. All of that being said, to take under consideration that everything that we are, everything we strive for, is all premised on the smallest, most insignificant part of God, it kind of gives you a tough thing.
Let's finish this thing so we could finish at least this ois. I think you're getting a little, right? A little of the concept. Is it clear?
Yes.
Ronen, it makes sense?
Yeah.
Let's just finish the thing, because I want to finish the ois. This little light that shines, a little potential light that's so small, is called achrena. It's called achrena because it's the lowest, so to say. It's the exterior of Hashem, but not that it has a limit. It's just the lowest level that has no limit. Look at the sun. Even the shine and light that comes from the sun, is clear. The light that comes from the sun is for sure, the light is in the sun also. If it emanates outside the sun, it must be that in the sun there's also light. Because if it comes from the sunlight, there must be in the sun itself also light. But this light that's in the sun is like ayin ve'efes mamish. L'gabi guf kadei hashemesh v'kar commissioners bara arichah v'sefer shel beinim shebeyoyse kol v'shemes ein nafel lo shuv shem yesh klal. When the shine of the sun is in the sun, there's no name for shine. In the sun, it's called ayin ve'efes. Because the shine, we call it the radiance that comes from the sun, when it's still in the sun, it's not called radiance, it's still sun.
Correct.
So because it's still in the sun, it doesn't have a name. I want to tell you something. The radiance of the sun, it shines from the sun. The sun has no choice. The sun doesn't have a choice that the light should come out of it or the light shouldn't come out of it. The sun is giving light. That's what it is. The kol shekein if the sun that has no choice that light should come out, the light means nothing in the sun itself when it's still in the sun. Of course, Hashem, which Hashem is Aleph, Alfi, Havlavim, Avdalis, he's far removed from the sun. Sheliyois Gilu Or, for Hashem to shine a light When Hashem wanted it to shine, He decides it should shine. This potential that Hashem has, that He could shine light, is compared to nothing. Like a person's name. So basically, whatever for Hashem, He doesn't have to shine any light. But if He chose to shine light, that light is the lowest level of the ma'atzil that comes to be that little ray of light. It's not a light that's limited, it's a light that's Ein Sof, but it comes from the lowest level of Hashem, which is only ha'ara v'ziv of Hashem. From the Arizal, there's a pure, clear proof. The Pirish Or Ein Sof, what does it mean Or Ein Sof? Hainu Or V'Agilui. Or Ein Sof is only the light that comes out, that's called Or Ein Sof. But Mahusev Atzmusai? But Hashem Himself, could you say Or? No. P'chinis Hamor. Hashem is the source, Makora Or. V'im Loikein Ma'u Pirish P'chinis. Turn the page. Only a little shine from Ein Sof. And even this shine that comes from Ein Sof, because of the Ein Sof Shaykh Leimar, the only time you could say Ein Sof is only on Shmo Yisbarach, but not on the essence of Hashem. So it's interesting. You could only say the word Or and Sof only on the Or and Ziv of Hashem. But on Hashem you can't use Ein Sof. It's already a limit. Ein Sof is a limit. Only the Ziv of Hashem, which is the lowest of Hashem, you could say Ein Sof. So what are we? We're like peanut butter, yeah? Ach omnam ima yeshe emes nochen hadavar da al or levad yitoy chol leim b'chenes chenem kol makim b'chenes ha'yischan shel Yosef ein ha'kavan al kol es or v'ziv mamash kim oy der tzolom sheb'chenes ha'yischan or v'ziv mizeh nimshach li es atek la'atzilus sheb'tchil ha'ya tzimtzum ba'or v'achakach, like we said, there was first a tzimtzum in the light, then there's a kavachut that becomes, from there comes atik of atzilus, which is the keter, and then atik is nimshach of maslavish ba'arach ampim, which is the shoydish, and the beginning of Ne'et Salim, which is Keter, which Keter is the Memutza. Bein Hamatzil Ne'et Salim, Hainu Chtei, Liyas Ha'eres Ein Sof. In order that this Or Ein Sof, not Atzmos, the Or, this which is a little, the lowest level of Atzmos, in order that this Ein Sof should be able to come in Kalim of Esses, Svidus of Atzilus, has to go through a Tzimtzum of Keter, which is Mislabish, V'chenes Tachleina Or, in Shoyrish Esses Svidus, which is Keter, which is Shoyrish and Etzalim, Shegavam Ha'losel in Kezim Chenet Parda Esses Svidus, V'on Kol Yachad, well, Deizeh Achakach, from there comes Ha'ara, which comes into Chachma, Bina, Das, after it goes through Keser, like that's the whole thing. Is this clear, Chavra? I think it's very clear.
No, it's clear.
I just feel bad for all the ones that didn't hear it. Such a clear...
They'll have to watch the movie.
You'll have to tell them to watch. Okay, we'll shut it now. Yashekeini for listening.